there's a lot going on right now on budget policy for conservatives to be keeping track of in the next year. The main thing that we're focusing on right now is the tax cuts. And as John mentioned, you know, there's in the bill that's being negotiated right now between the president and Congress, there's some good, there's some okay, and there's some really bad. You know, on the good side, you get a 2-year extension of the 2001 and 2003 pro-growth tax cuts. Very important, very needed, very important to have it done now so that you don't have it interrupted in January even temporarily, because even then you're going to have tax rates go up temporarily, you're going to have any capital gains taxes will be assessed at a higher rate, then you'll have to go back and do any tax changes retroactively, tax tables won't be updated, there's upheaval. The AMT patch, very good, very important, prevents 20 million people from getting hit with the AMT. And extending bonus depreciation for another year or two, very important to make sure that businesses can invest without paying extra taxes. Those 3 things are very good. The okay in the bill is some of the other tax extenders. The tax extenders, the R&E tax credit, some of the other tax extenders, that, you know, tax credits for rum and windmills and all of that stuff. On the one hand, I don't like just getting rid of tax credits unilaterally. It should be done as part of tax reform where you actually lower the rate in return for getting rid of the tax breaks. But these aren't exactly the kind of tax policies that conservatives love. Conservatives, you know, don't really love having every little nook and cranny in the tax code carved out by a lobbyist. So extending a lot of these little nooks and crannies is okay. We'd prefer to lower the rates to accompany it. The second thing that's okay is the payroll tax holiday. It's not going to have supply-side effects. The only way to have supply-side effects is if you had the payroll tax holiday on the employer side, because that would actually lower the employer's cost of hiring people and encourage the employer to hire people. If you're doing it on the employee side, that's just kind of a demand-side government handout. It's going to feel good to have the money, but you're not really creating growth. The ugly in this bill is the Obama tax policy extenders, you know, the American Opportunity Tax Credit, a lot of little things that President Obama put into his stimulus that are really just kind of handouts and giveaways for his friends are going to be extended for another year or two. And the 13-month extension of unemployment benefits costing $60 billion without a nickel of offsets. Still creating a situation where people can be on unemployment for 99 consecutive weeks. Economists from the left, right, even the crazy left like Paul Krugman have written that extending unemployment benefits for as long as 99 weeks starts to have really negative effects on the labor market because people aren't going to look as hard for a job when you have 99 weeks of unemployment. So overall, the tax bill is a mixed bag. There's a strong case to be made that if conservatives reject it now, they can get a better deal in January. Because right now, the holdup is the Democratic House. Nancy Pelosi does not want to make her last act as Speaker to be extending the Bush tax cuts. So I think that there's a strong case to be made that if you wait a couple weeks, you get the Democratic House out of the way, you're negotiating, you have a more moderate Senate, a conservative House, and a president who's actually willing to give a little bit. The conservatives are in a stronger hand if we wait. Of course, like I said, the negative about waiting is you do cause some upheaval to the markets in the meantime. You do cause some withholding issues where people's taxes will temporarily go up. That could get ugly. But that's the first thing I think to be keeping track of on budget. Second is the opportunities to rein in spending. You know, in the last 3 years, the government has expanded by $727 billion. Not like combined over 3 years. I mean, today the budget is $727 billion bigger than it was 3 years ago. Washington now spends $30,000 for every household in America. Raise your hand if you're getting your money's worth. Raise your hand if you think you can spend your $30,000 a hell of a lot smarter than politicians can spend it for you. Well, as a result of this, we have massive deficits, of course. So you can't grow spending by $727 billion and then be surprised when you have a $1.3 trillion deficit. The good news is the Obama spending agenda, as of January 5th, is dead. There will be no cap and trade. There will be no huge Obama spending hikes. The huge, expensive Obama agenda will die when the Republicans take the House. The question is, what will Republicans do with it? There's going to be multiple opportunities to rein in spending. The first we're seeing right now is finishing the 2011 appropriations bills. You know, the Democrats didn't even bother passing a budget. They didn't bother passing a single spending bill. They did nothing. And now, a third of the way through the fiscal year, now they're getting around to doing a year-long, one big bill for to fund the whole year. Conservatives right now are pushing for a freeze. That's the least we can do is a freeze, and we may be able to even do better. It's tough to get a lot of spending cuts in place for this year because by the time the Republicans take Congress, the year will be half over. But a freeze right now is the minimum we should expect for 2011 spending bills, and we may be able to go further. The second bite at the apple we're going to get is when the House takes over, they can implement new House rules. Right now, the budget process is rigged in favor of higher spending. There's virtually no spending limits. The budget baseline locks in rising spending every year. The House rules will provide a great opportunity to create budget caps. Simple rules. Government can't grow faster than inflation plus population, and in the meantime, let's actually cut it. Rules requiring a supermajority for new spending. Rules banning earmarks. The great thing about the rules package is you don't need to get the Senate to agree and you don't need to get the President to agree. The House can pass their own rules unilaterally, and those will govern the House. Pay close attention to the House rules package. The third bite at the apple will be the debt limit vote. We're going to hit the $14.3 trillion debt limit in March. This is must-pass legislation to raise it. I'm going to tell you, you can't not raise the debt limit. I know it's tempting, but raising the debt limit is basically about paying the bills for commitments we've already made. We can't just decide as a country we're not going to pay bills for commitments we've already made. But what we can do is attach one hell of a set of demands to make sure this never happens again. We can demand real spending cuts, $100, $200, $300 billion in immediate spending cuts. We can demand from the President statutory, locked-in spending caps that set a course for the next 5, 10 years. And the President can't just ignore our demands because this is must-pass legislation. The Senate can't just decide not to take it up. The President can't just decide to ignore it. We have to raise the debt limit. This is the opportunity where conservative voices can't just be ignored. This is the chance to say we want immediate spending cuts, we want caps, we want reforms. We can't not let the debt limit go up. We can't refuse to pay our past bills, but we can damn well make sure that we're not going to be back in this situation 6 months from now. The final main opportunity in 2012 will be next year will be the 2012 budget resolution. Hopefully by then we'll be done with this year's budget. We can start next year's budget. Speaker-to-be Boehner has already said he wants to cut $100 billion from non-defense, non-homeland, non-international, what am I missing? Non-veterans discretionary spending. That's great. That's great. That covers 12% of the budget. He's going to take a sliver of 12% of the budget and cut $100 billion out of it. I think we got to go a hell of a lot further than that. I think we got to look at the other 88% of the budget too. I think we got to look at entitlements. I think we got to look. There's even going to be some inefficiencies in defense we're going to take a look at. Not supporting our troops, but taking a look at the fact that we lose $100 million a year on not using refundable airline tickets in the Department of Defense that they just don't bother to file the refunds for. Little waste, fraud, and abuse. So the budget resolution is going to be a huge test. I don't want to see $100 billion in cuts. I have outlined a paper on heritage.org how to cut $343 billion on day one, and that's even before you get to the major entitlements. And that's not just by tweaking here and there, but taking a fundamental re-examination of what does government do? What is the role of the federal government? What is the role of states? And what is the role of individuals? And actually taking an axe to that $727 billion spending hike we've had over the last 3 years. Finally, I think one of the big things is Obamacare. Let's defund it. Yeah. We don't have the votes to repeal it, but we can deny the funds to implement it. We have to do that. Now, but before I wrap up, take a couple questions, if we have time. I don't know if I'm way over.
No, you're good.
Okay. I just want to say a little bit about, more broadly about the entitlement issue and the Fiscal Commission. Because the entitlement spending issue is really the biggest single economic challenge of our era. The combination of 77 million retiring baby boomers and the growing cost of health care is going to drive the cost of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid to levels unimaginable. In 1960, we had 5 workers supporting the benefits of each retiree. Today it's 3 to 1. By 2030, it'll be 2 to 1. That means that imagine a boy and a girl born today in 2010. By 2030, they marry and start a family. This couple will have to support themselves, their children, and the Social Security and Medicare benefits of their very own retiree. Every married couple, you got your student loan, you're trying to get your first job, you want to buy a house, daycare is costing $12,000 per year, and now you have the Social Security and Medicare benefits of your own retiree, every couple. And think of it, by 2030, a Tylenol is going to cost $100. So this is going to be really tough. Overall, according to the Congressional Budget Office, just paying all current benefits promised in law would require putting the middle class in a 63% tax bracket and the upper class and small businesses into an 88% tax bracket. That's just if we keep Social Security and Medicare as they are today, no changes made. 63%, 88% tax bracket. Now, this is purely, as I'm communicating, a spending problem. I'm not saying anything about revenues are going to drop long term, the Bush tax cuts are going to starve revenues. Even if we keep the Bush tax cuts, revenues are still going to exceed the historical average. This is 100% a problem of rising entitlement spending. That is what's driving 100% of the long-term deficits. So what did the Fiscal Commission do? Bless their heart, they tried to take, their heart was in the right place. They tried to take on this issue. But they came up with a plan of 50% tax cut, 50% tax hikes, and 50% spending tweaks. I say tweaks because they're not even real spending reforms. They're spending tweaks that the commission proposed appointing a commission to find cuts. The tax hikes that they proposed are real and would take effect immediately. The spending cuts were to have the commission appoint a commission. And even then, they wouldn't balance the budget until 2035. So their heart was in the right place. They failed. What I'm hoping is that, as important as it is to get the spending cuts we need now, to get the House rules in place, to put some reforms in the debt limit, to get next year's budget resolution right, for the next couple of years, the big thing is to get Social Security and Medicare right, because this will bankrupt America. Again, this will bankrupt America. And every year we wait, the cost of reform goes up by $2 trillion. So the test of courage for the GOP will be, are you ready to take on Social Security and Medicare? Paul Ryan from my home state of Wisconsin has a roadmap to reform Social Security and Medicare. I actually would go further than his roadmap. But the question is, will Congress take it on or not? Or will they just say, we'll do the easy small cuts, but we're not going to do anything about bankrupting the country? I mean, what we have to do is take on these programs, put them on a 30-year budget, and start making the difficult decisions. Otherwise, what we're doing to our kids is nothing short of fiscal child abuse. Yep. What we're doing to the people born today who take on that burden in 2030, who inherit a 63% tax rate, that is fiscal child abuse. We can do it now, or we can wait 10 years and make the reforms even much more painful when more of the baby boomers have already retired, and then we're really pulling the rug out from under them. So that's basically where we're at. We need to get those tax cuts through right now. We need to do the immediate spending reforms, and we need to take on entitlements. That's what to focus on in the next year.